First of all, I would like to say that my today presentation is the interim result of a series of field campaigns which I conducted and initiated actually in 2013 in Dobruja, in the southeastern part of Romania, where are concentrated the Turks and Tatars in our country. I would like to say that it became one of my interests in 2013 as when I became a researcher in the Romanian Institute on Research on National Minorities. And I would like to start with a brief history. The presence of the Turks and Tatars in Dobruja area dates back to the 13th century and consolidate all through the Ottoman period, the main zones of origin being Asia Minor and Crimea in the case of the Tatars. Actually, the most recent migratory waves towards Dobruja were those of the Tatars in the 18th century after the conquest of the Crimean Khanate by the Russian Empire, and in the 19th century during the Crimean War. After the annexation of northern Dobruja to Romania in the aftermath of the independence war in 1877-1878, came a massive migration of the Turk and Tatar populations from Dobruja to Ottoman areas, which was highly emphasized in the interwar period. Actually, in 1936, Romania and Turkey signed an agreement, an official agreement in this sense, and the migration phenomenon was legalized in this way, but had some irreversible demographic effects on the Turkish and Tatar populations in the region. Actually, some demographic sources suggest that between the integration of Dobruja to Romania and until the installation of the communist regime in 1946, some 60,000, 70,000 Turks and Tatars migrated towards Turkey. Data of the most recent census from 2011 indicate around 28,000 Turks and 21,000 Tatars. Regarding the evolution of their ethnic identity, I would say that on the one hand we can speak of a common core, the sense of belonging to the Turkic world, which evolved under the influence of the Turkish nationalism, the ideology which laid at the foundation of the new Turkish state, which contributed to the creation of a new consciousness adapted to the new political situation of the interwar period. More precisely, against the backdrop of the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire as a structure in which Muslim solidarity prevailed as a form of identification, the new nationalist ideology offered Dobruja Turks and Tatars an essential element of their identity, a sense of pride in belonging to the Turkic world. The second important core involves the particularization of Tatar identity discourse, creating beyond the differentiation through the Crimean Tatar origins a delimitation which resulted from their connections to the political and ideological evolution to their territory of origin, Crimea, in the interwar period. And here I am talking about the Tatar national movement in Crimea in this period. In what concerns the issue of self-identification in the communist period, in the case of Turks and Tatars, but also that of mutual identification and the general perception of the society, their situation was evidently influenced by the communist state policy towards minorities. The creation of the united working people meant the leveling of society and therefore the integration of all citizens regardless of nationality into egalitarian communist society, which involved social and national leveling and assimilation. As a consequence, in the case of groups and individuals, the interviews with members of the Turkish and Tatar communities reveal an ethnic identity which has become private, whose space of manifestation was most of the time the personal space of the family or the house, as a personal space or a weakening of the sense of the ethnic belonging resulting from and motivated by the preoccupation for social and professional adjustment to the communist society. In the case of families which were directly targeted by repression from the authorities, life in communism seems to have been experienced from the perspective of personal drama. Ethnic aspects faded into background of their inner life, their place being taken by priorities such as material and existential survival under the communist regime. Both Turks and Tatars underlined with regard to the mutual identification Turk-Tatar in this period the absence of clear differences between the two ethnic groups. The arguments are the practice of a common Muslim religion, the existence of mixed marriages between Turks and Tatars, and the shared customs which were resulting from the Islamic Muslim religion. After the fall of the communism in Romania in 1989, we can speak, like in the case of all ethnic minorities, about a rediscovery of identity, values, and symbols. The revival of the spiritual life was implicitly accompanied by an institutional one, with the creation as early as the last days of December 1989 of the Democratic Turkish Muslim Union of Romania, an ethnic organization based on their common Turkic Islamic component. After a few months, because of some disagreements between them, they split up in the Turkish Minority Union, which became the later Democratic Turkish Union of Romania, and Democratic Union of the Turkish Muslim Tatars in Romania. Which actually the background of this separation was the Muftiate crisis between February and July 1999. Actually, after the dismissal of the Mufti who held this position ever since in the communist period, ever since 1947, part of the Muslim community requested the naming of a historian, and which was also a graduate of the Muslim seminary in Medgidia. Medgidia is a town in Dobruja. On the other hand, the Imams did not want to lose the power and elected a Mufti from among them. The rupture between the two ethnic groups was caused by the fact that this historian candidate was a Turk, while the newly elected Mufti was a Tatar. Thus, also the groups that had supported each of them included both Turks and Tatars. The disagreements soon took the shape of a conflict between Turks and Tatars, and that's how this split up came up. In retrospect, we have two different perspectives on the separation. A part of the community is against the separation, and the arguments are the financial reasons. More exactly, they are speaking about the subsidies which are assured by the state budget for the minority organizations in Romania. Also, the other argument is the religious and cultural connection represented by Islam, the customs deriving from this religion, and the common Turkic origins. Another part of the two communities are for the separation, and they are in favor of this organizational and representational separation, simultaneously with the continued collaboration in the field of culture and education between the two minorities. The present perspective upon the communist period, in what it is crystallized around two types of discourse, reflecting two types of retrospective attitudes and behaviors regarding the previous regime. The conformity discourse, on the one hand, which is based on elements like the equal treatment of Turks and Tatars, in harmony with the treatment of the other ethnic minorities and all citizens in general, the exclusion of any feeling of marginalization, of discrimination, be it ethnic or any other kind, and this kind of discourse is the motivation which is the base of this discourse is the professional achievement, which is also the core of the memory of this period. And the second discourse is that one of repression, based on elements like persecution, blackmail, the resort to the pretext of unhealthy social origins in the exclusion of children from the educational system, the impossibility of continuing their studies for those who had a political history, for those who had members who had been arrested for political reason, the refusal, for example, to surrender land to the newly established collective agricultural institutions, and the personal connections to Turkey. For the followers of this discourse, the repression policy of the communist state is the core of the memory of the communist period. Regarding their situation, as a religious community, the existence of the Muftiate as a representative institution of the Muslim religion in Romania in the communist period, at first sight, its role seems to have been a predominantly administrative one. Some of those interviews highlighted the role of the Muftiate in administrating the mosque and in saving many of these during the communist period. Among the ethnic Turks and Tatars as Muslim community, the Muftiate is perceived through the presence of Imams, seen as important factors in the preservation of the Muslim religion in the communist period. Ethnic Turks and Tatars recognized their merit in maintaining their status in a period in which the function of Imam meant both a social and material disadvantage. Those interviewed denied the idea of a direct persecution of the communist regime based on the fact that they were of Muslim religion, but they highlight at the same time the tacit policy of discouraging spiritual life practiced by the communist regime in the case of all religions in Romania. As an example, they mentioned the fact that religious services were organized at the mosque every day Friday, but they also confirmed the reluctance of the population to express their religious choices and attitudes publicly. This attitude had as a result the absence of much of the active population from the religious ceremonies. The reasons mentioned were the fear of consequences of their professional life and implicitly on their social and economic life. Thus, religion services appear as the duty of the older members of the Muslim community, be they Turks or Tatars. On the whole, the factors which emerge as the main ones in preserving the Muslim religion identity during the communist period is in the case of both ethnic Turks and ethnic Tatars, or the presence of Imams, the community life, and the family. The importance of Imams is highlighted on the one hand, as I already mentioned, in the context of their capacity to resist the economic and social vicissitude resulting from their status of as official religious representatives. On the other hand, their presence is connected to the second factor in the preservation of religious identity, namely community life, starting with the 60s when the effects of urbanization and industrialization began to be felt. Community life was reduced to gatherings on the occasion of wedding ceremonies, baptism, and funeral. And actually, the only religious festivals observed at the community level in the communist period remained Kurban Bayram and Ramazan Bayram, mentioned especially in the context of the participation to the religious services at the mosque. The family emerges as the main structure which ensured the survival of the religious feeling. The older members of the family were mainly the ones who fulfilled the task of transmitting the elements of religious education, both informative and practical, to the younger generations. Against the background of a general attitude of caution regarding public manifestation of religious choices, customs such as observing the fast or daily religious prayers became individual practices with the family and the home, ensuring a private and secure environment where they could take place. Alongside traditions and customs, a component of the ethnic identity that was influenced by the changes in society, by the processes of industrialization and urbanization, was the language, both Turkish and Tatar. Migrations from villages to cities and the dissipation of ethnic Turks and Tatars into workers' quarters meant the destruction of the social centers that had spread the culture and implicitly the mother tongue. Under these circumstances, and as a result of the dissolution in 1957 of Turkish language education and of Tatar language education at the beginning of the 70s, the family remained the last stronghold for the preservation of the Turkish and Tatar language spoken in the privacy of the home and of small social gatherings. Also, because I'm running out of time, one of the important elements of the identity discourse is the reference to the territory of origins. Of course, Turkey represents in the Turkish collective mentality the motherland. Of course, Crimea, which is Crimea, represented by Crimea in the Tatar consciousness. But also very important to underline is that Turkey represents for the Tatars the second homeland, the protector homeland in the situation of a lack of a Tatar state. And in conclusion, I would say that we can notice an alternation of identity layers at the identity level. On the one hand, in the interwar period, we can find the Turks and Tatars in the ethnic community hypostasis, because their identity is, or prevailing the components like the sense of belonging to the Turkic world, the Crimean origins. In the communist period, we can notice the fading of the ethnic identity and their surviving as a religious community, of course, in the conditions specific to that period of censorship. And in the post-communist period, we are finding them again in the ethnic hypostasis, when in this period a compensating process of return to the identity components which prevailed in the inter-period took place. So the affiliation to the Turkic world, the Crimean origins in the case of the Tatars, the connection with the origin territories. Thank you.